This program is brought to you by Dodge Truck, the official vehicle of the In-Fisherman Communications Network.
Al, Ron, and James Lindner present The Smallmouth Bass. Because of its legendary fighting ability, jealously territorial nature, and penchant for attacking baits of varying sizes, shapes, and actions, this bronze-backed fighter has become something of an icon to the folks here at In-Fisherman. The Smallie appears on the ubiquitous black and yellow hats and other emblems of the In-Fisherman staff. And whenever the In-Fisherman magazine has passed a major milestone or anniversary, the smallmouth bass has been right there on the cover to help us celebrate. In past videos, we've explored the basic nature of the smallmouth bass in lakes, rivers, and reservoirs, giving you a broad overview of the species and the methods most commonly used to catch them. In this program, we'll investigate some of the best areas across North America for catching smallmouth bass, and we'll go into specific location principles that will help you take advantage of these fantastic smallmouth fisheries. We'll start off our journey by going north of the border into Ontario to join Al Lindner for a short refresher course on the basic nature of the smallmouth bass and the habitat it prefers.
Oh, there's one. Oh, it's gonna come up, Oh, I love it. I love catching smallmouth. Look at it. Oh, man. Absolutely one of my favorite fish. No question about it. You know, smallies are way more abundant. Oh, I lost her. You know, they're way more abundant. Look at that. She really mangled that lure up. They're way more abundant than say, spotted bass, but nowhere near as plentiful as largemouth. We got smallies like this in lakes and reservoirs all over the country. But you know the water that they really like? Running water. Rivers and streams like this. That's where they shine. Like its cousin, the spotted bass, the smallmouth was primarily a river fish. The original range of the smallie was limited to the middle and northeastern United States. In the late 1800s, through the Depression, the smallmouth range was expanded by stocking via milk cans on a railroad. Since that time, they've been stocked in all but 3 of the lower 48 states. Today, some of the best big fish waters, fish that go 6, 7, and yes, even 8 pounds, are Pickwick Reservoir in Alabama, Kentucky Lake and Lake Cumberland in Kentucky, and naturally Dale Hollow, home of the world record smallmouth. Hey, for numbers of fish, you can't beat the Great Lakes and the boundary waters between Minnesota and Canada. Oh, that one was a little further out. Oh, she ain't a bad fish. She ain't a bad fish. I didn't think it was that good when she first popped it. She hit that little spinner bait. I went through a littler blade, switching back and forth between the big Blue Fox tandem spin and a little spinnerbait. Come here. Oh, this is a respectable smallie in anybody's book, huh? You know, rarely are smallmouth like this the predominant fish in any system. There's a few exceptions, some Canadian lakes and a few rivers and streams, yes, but in most cases they're not the predominant fish. And no matter where you fish for them, one thing's for certain, these dudes are real aggressive. Now that can be good or bad depending on how you look at it. When it comes to bass, the smallmouth is the most territorial-minded. In many lakes and reservoirs, the best areas are occupied seasonally by resident fish year after year. In fact, many smallmouths' entire lives may be based in areas no larger than 100 yards if all the habitat requirements are met. You can see why smallmouth bass can be very vulnerable to overharvesting. Once fish are taken from an area, they're gone forever. Oh man, that fish came out of the water. Oh, did you see that? That fish cleared water. Holy smoke, look at that. What an attitude that fish has got. I hit that fish and she came clean out. She must have jumped 3 foot out of the water. That's what I really like about catching these big old smallies like this. Come here. Whoa, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Look at it. Look at it, baby. You might have heard me say it before, but I mean it. These are my favorite fish. There's no question about it. You know, one neat thing about smallmouth like this, they're not necessarily a fish of cover like a largemouth or a spot. They like open water, there's no question about it, and that makes presentation a lot easier for a lot of situations. Fact is, in the past couple years, we've been learning more and more about fishing for suspended smallmouth. You heard me right, suspended smallmouth, open water fish. A compilation of 10 different studies showed that the average smallmouth relies on crawfish for over 60% of its diet. Recent findings point out that in some bodies of water, the largest smallmouth bass intermittently suspend, feeding on ciscos and shad as well as crayfish. These fish base their movement on structures adjacent to deep water areas, giving them access to these alternate food sources. It's interesting that almost all the big fish, whether they're big bass, pike, muskie, or walleye, make similar movements, keying in on large schools of open water forage. You know, there's really a lot of different kinds of lures you can use to catch smallmouth bass. And boy, they're suckers for live bait. Way more than a largemouth bass or a spotted bass is. But there's one misconception that I always hear when people are talking about smallmouth bass, and that's that you gotta use small baits to catch smallies. Wrong. By nature, smallmouth are extremely aggressive schooling fish. While small grubs, worms, spinners, and crankbaits are considered standard smallmouth baits, you can often target the largest fish in schools by beefing up the largemouth bass-sized baits. The biggest, most aggressive fish tend to bite the bigger baits first. I got down in this grass section in the river. I was just going to say, well, let's get out of here. There's nothing happening. I fished just enough of it. And then bingo, just when you're ready to leave, she hits. I'll tell you what, for my money, when it's all said and done, there ain't too many things in this whole world that can beat a good day of smallmouth fishing.
Ever since the earth-gouging glaciers receded during the Pleistocene era, smallmouth bass have inhabited the feeder rivers and bays of the newly created Great Lakes. And for all these millennia, colonies of smallmouths have prospered in those big water environs with little or no stocking efforts necessary to perpetuate the population. And with the recent attention given to the trout, salmon, and walleye fisheries of the Great Lakes, the smallmouth bass has been largely overlooked and underfished. We join Al Lindner along with television director Jim Lindner as they delve into this fantastic fishery.
Hey, what do you consider a good day of smallmouth fishing? Is it 10, 25, 50 smallmouth? Hey, what about 100 fish? You heard me right, 100 fish that go from, let's say, 1.5 to 4 pounds. It isn't rare to have that happen here on a lot of these back bays and lakes that adjoin to the Great Lakes. Fact is, the best smallmouth fishing in the world, bar none, is the Great Lakes and many of the rivers and lakes that feed it.
One thing about the Great Lakes, a lot of these areas, there's no closed season, which means, ooh, you got popped there a little bit, which means you can fish pre-spawn and get in on some phenomenal bass fishing. You get up on some of these big flats like this and there's literally hundreds of fish.
The real big catches of these fish happen early in the year when you get up on these flats and those fish are still coming in. You know, you take spinner baits, tubes, top water baits, and just cover incredible amount of water. Inline spinners like a Vibrex, something like that, in smaller sizes. And you know, it's a variety of baits that do work. You could get into some tremendous topwater fishing. Tremendous.
There he is. Oh, big one. Ooh, look at that.
Nice fish.
That is. These guys are just great, aren't they? Ooh, look at them go. Definitely do some rod bending. You know, right now we're fishing in spring of the year, and there's some real specific type of habitat to look for to find these fish. It's really simple. Once you find this habitat, you're going to find these guys.
The largest populations of Great Lakes smallmouth bass base their seasonal movements around large rock and boulder flats shallower than 30 feet of water. In spring, when water temperature is in the 55-degree range and rising, large numbers of fish move shallow. Here, smallies will be concentrated around wind-protected reed beds or rock and boulder piles in 3 to 10 feet of water. In a lot of cases, you can actually see schools of cruising smallmouths.
Right where he should have been. I seen that rock in there and just boom. He was flat all over it. That might be a twosome spot, James.
Look back in there.
A twosome spot. Should be more than that in there. You know, there's oodles you get in these bays, these shallow water bays with big flats like this, and there's whole bunches of fish that go from 1.5 to about 3 pounds. A tremendous population in the Great Lakes of fish like that. But you see 4, 5, 6s. Just recently, Lake Erie put up a 9.8. 9.8. That's a gigantic smallmouth for that far north. He's on it.
There he is. Ooh, there we go.
Get her out of them reeds.
Yeah, she's digging. Come on, baby. There we go. Man, those boys are so tough. Look at that. I mean, they just lean on you.
They just don't want to quit.
Yeah, I know. Come here. How can you go wrong with them?
You can't. Never.
Come here.
Ooh.
You know, there's so many different places in the Great Lakes that have fantastic smallmouth fishing, but here's just a few of some real prime areas.
Each one of the Great Lakes has some phenomenal smallmouth bass fisheries. On Lake Superior, try Chequamegon Bay. Lake Michigan, Green Bay or Big and Little Bay de Noc. Lake Huron, Georgian Bay and Saginaw Bay. Lake Erie, the Bass Islands or Presque Isle Bay in the Colchester area. Lake Ontario, the Bay of Quinte and Henderson Harbor. Lake Sinclair also retains some great bass fishing. Interestingly, a lot of these areas receive little to no fishing pressure.
You know, it's a beautiful day out, a beautiful spring day. We have not seen another boat trucking around through here at all, and we're catching smallmouths every major reef, every major structure we go. And if the fish are really, it's really a bypass fishing opportunity. I'm telling you, if you live down south and you're looking for something a little different, take a ride up here to the Great Lakes and cash in on smallmouth fishing like you've never seen before. If you live close to the Great Lakes and haven't taken advantage of the smallmouth opportunities that exist all over the place here, you're missing a boat.
He's gonna pick it up. Ooh, there we go. There we go. Look at that. Look at that water clarity. Just unbelievable. It looks really shallow. Actually, it's deeper than you would imagine. Now we're talking. Smallmouth bass of the Great Lakes. There's no finer smallmouth bass fishing anywhere in North America.
The smallmouth bass was originally a fish of rivers. But when progress dictated that river systems across North America be dammed up to provide power for industry and individuals, a new fishery for the smallmouth bass opened, especially in the deep, cool water reservoirs of the Tennessee Valley. Al Lindner joins expert smallmouth angler Randall Gibson on Lake Cumberland in Kentucky for some hot fall smallmouth action.
One more jump. Got her. Oh, got her. You know, this is absolutely one of my favorite fish, smallies. I love catching them. You know, some of the best smallmouth fishing I've ever seen for quantity and quality is in the Great Lakes and parts of Ontario. But I'll tell you what, you come further south, here in Kentucky, and some of these Tennessee reservoirs, they offer some top-notch smallmouth fishing, especially for big fish. And you know one of the best times of the year to fish these babies? Late fall and early winter, when the water temperature is in the low 50s and it'll dip down as, say, 45 degrees, they'll still hit. One of the best ways to catch them? We're going to be talking about that. Now, you know, a lot of guys here in Kentucky and Tennessee, and a lot of these smallmouth reservoirs, in the wintertime, what they do is they'll jig blade baits like silver buddies or pop spoons for these fish, or throw, you know, jig and pork rind. But if you really want to score on these winter smallmouths when the water's cold, the answer is simple. Live bait. And these big shiners are available in a lot of these bait shops all over this Cumberland area and a lot of the better smallmouth reservoirs in the south here. And live bait in winter months is tough to beat, whether you're fishing them on slip sinkers or jigs the way we're pitching up on these banks right now. It's the way to catch these cold water smallies. No question about it. Oh, missed him. Well, you come down here in the winter months from the North Country, get on these lakes like Cumberland like this and start getting out on these main lake points. The main lake points is the key. Now you could rig real deep water, you can cast jig and minnow up on these banks, and those fish will be, well, Randall, anywhere from say 15 feet on a shallow end to as deep as 50 feet probably, with 20 to 40 usually being best.
November through March is usually the best time, I think, to catch some true trophy smallmouth out of Cumberland here. There's no pressure on the fish. We've not seen a boat out here all day fishing, have we?
Do you know what time of the year it is here? I'm going to try to give you a guess. I'm cold, obviously. I'll tell you what, it's 4 days before Christmas. That's right, 4 days before Christmas. And I ain't done my Christmas shopping yet. I hope my wife ain't watching this show.
If the fish keep hitting today like they've been doing, you may not get home till New Year's. And you will be in trouble then.
I got it, Randall.
Another one of those
Look
fish.
at her, she's coming up.
There she comes.
Nice, oh, good one.
That's a good fish, Al.
That fish came deep, man. She's coming up again. Oh, beautiful small, man. Oh, man. Smalls don't want to quit, man. Oh, man. And smallmouth bass, even in this bitter cold water, don't want to quit fighting. Oh, that's what I came here for, Randall. Catch a few more of these dudes. You know, there's a lot of good lakes that offer some fantastic wintertime smallmouth fishing. Here's a few of them you might want to take advantage of. For some exceptional late fall and winter smallmouth fishing, the TVA lakes offer both numbers and size. Pickwick and Wheeler reservoirs in northern Alabama annually produce the largest smallmouth caught in North America. In Kentucky, Lake Cumberland, Dale Hollow, and Kentucky Lake all can provide some fantastic smallmouth fishing. One of the most interesting points is there's very little fishing pressure in the winter months.
Come in here.
Fantastic. I love you. You don't need a net on her. Just you ain't ready to quit yet.
Nothing beats wintertime smallmouth here, Al. That's a beautiful chunk.
I'll tell you one thing, none of them are little fish. That's what I really like about it. They're all nice fish. When you're looking at these main lake points, there's really two kinds of points to keep in mind. There's jigging points and there's rigging points, generally. See these stair-step ledge points like this that fall real fast? These points, they'll fall from 0 to about 50 feet of water in no time. These points work better casting a jigging minnow up on it and letting it fall real slow back down. They'd be hard to rig points. You get snagged up a lot. The better rigging points are the points that have a little flatter taper and go out a little bit further. Got a hit. Yeah, he's right. Look, coming up. Nice. Oh, random. I love this. Oh, look at that. Oh, those smallies are incredible. Look at her, she just arrived. One more jump, baby. This is my way of spending just about Christmas. A lip lock on her. Don't jump, don't jump, don't jump. Gotcha. Look at that one. This has been fun, man. I'll tell you what, if you live up north in a cold country and you're just getting a little bit tired of looking at frozen water, smallmouth trip down south on some of these smallie reservoirs could be just what the doctor ordered for you.
Florida, Texas, California, where is the best bass fishing in North America? Well, that's a topic that could start a fight. But during the summer months, the In-Fisherman staff spends an awful lot of time chasing big smallmouths in Ontario waters. Why? Just watch.
Look at this. I catch this size smallie, and look at the one he catches. This has been happening to me all morning. I know why, because he's fishing in front of me.
Yes. Whew. Maybe you get an idea why Al and I both enjoy fishing smallmouth bass so much. I mean, these are one tough street brawler. And we're up in Canada on a walleye lake. And you know what? Many of these waters also contain excellent populations of smallmouth, and most folks just don't fish for them. They're easy to catch, and today we're going to be cranking up smallmouth bass, walleyes, and probably a few bonus pike as well.
Oh, boy. Come on. Got him. So you get, look at how fat they are, Dan. Look at the weight on them things. You know, some of the best, absolute best walleye water all over Canada coincides with some of the best smallmouth water we fished all over Canada. And smallmouth happen to be my favorite fish, and I think yours too, Dan. Good one?
4 feet, yeah, that's got to be a small one.
Wow! Good one. Oh, Dan, I got one too. Boy, that's a good point.
These are hot fish. You got to be a little bit gentle with them too, you know. You get them hooked and right in the snout. You pull too hard, you pull it out.
You know, folks, what we're doing here, we're really eliminating a lot of different kind of water quick. Hold still, Smalley, and I'll have you right off here. What I'm doing is fishing behind Dan, throwing up into 2 to 4 foot stuff. I'm clearing that shallow water with an inline spinner. This happens to be a Vibrex. Once in a while, I'll twitch a pop-ar or a rattle up in that shallow stuff. Dan is paralleling the 4 to 7 foot stuff, and he's throwing a rattling fat wrap and a rattle wrap both. And we ain't missing a lick.
I agree, Al, and the key is just to efficiently eliminate water and cover those depth levels thoroughly.
There he is, right away. First cast. Call him up on that pop-ar and then flip that grub in there. Gotta get their attention, man. That's what I like so much about smallmouth fishing. These things don't ever quit fighting. Ever. They're a real aggressive fish when they get up in this shallow water, boy. They can get on a chew, and some days you just annihilate them. Lots of pounds of pure dynamite.
Oh, it's a huge smallmouth now. Yeah, beautiful. Look at that. Oh, right where he should have been on the tip of that big rock. But one thing about fishing up in these shield lakes, you're fishing in some heavy-duty rock. You need some good, strong line like that to keep it from being abraded. Oh. Wow, Al, if I were you, I'd go to this fat wrap. I've been smoking them on it.
They're hitting a good variety of baits. That's what I like about fishing smallmouth. I mean, we're fishing quite a few different kinds of baits, and they're all working. You know, from very, very shallow baits like a vibrex spinner or twitching a rapala inside the shallow rocks. I'll throw a pop bar like this across some of the points. Dan is cranking a little bit deeper in that slightly deeper water with a rattling fat wrap or a little vibrator like a rattling wrap. All of those are top-notch smallmouth baits up in the shallow water smallmouth lakes. Boy, I love when I hit that pop bar on the end of them points, Dan. That's fun. That is fun.
The bite's improving as the day wears on, well.
That's the key thing to remember. Let me get him in here. I'll just kind of lift you in, baby. Let me get a grab on him. You'll notice, folks, we're throwing horizontal baits. Everything we're using is horizontal in presentation. The fish are fairly aggressive. If they were off real slow, we'd fish vertical. But we can cover 3 times the water fishing horizontal with the family of lures we're throwing. And on these Canadian lakes, as the day gets nice and warm and sunny and calm, in the afternoons the fish get more active and more active and more active. That's one of the pluses of smallmouth fishing up here. They like nice weather like me.
Nice smallmouth.
Smallmouth?
Yep. Oh, wow.
Well, I can't think of a better way.
Can't think of a better way to end the day than going toe-to-toe with this smallmouth.
Oh, big fish, too. That's a beautiful. End of a pool.
Now, it's time to go right into the smallmouth bass's living room. River systems. Nowhere is the smallmouth more at home than in a riverine environment. If you want to understand the smallmouth bass, you must understand it in rivers. And the key to understanding rivers is knowing how fish relate to current and the ebb and flow of the seasonal water levels the fish must contend with day in and day out, year in and year out.
Really triggered her, James. I put that deeper diving bait on there. Oh, river smallmouth. Today I'm fishing smallmouth bass with James Lindner. And Minnesota is known as the land of 10,000 lakes, and we all know that Minnesota lakes have lots of big fish. But smallmouth bass live in many rivers throughout Minnesota, and today we're fishing on a river in central Minnesota, and we're going to take a look at some high and low water levels and how to follow smallmouth bass through the season. Okay, back you go. Ready for some more, James?
Good start. Ooh.
You got another one?
Yep. Huh. Here we go. Whoop, go. Right now we're fishing real late summer. It's actually into the early fall period, and a lot of the fish are set up on what you call real classic structures where these fish would sit. They're very main river channel oriented. But that isn't always the case. Depending on the water level really dictates where these fish will be positioned. But the first thing you have to understand is just generally what is their seasonal movement, which is really actually pretty predictable.
Unlike smallmouth bass in lakes and reservoirs, which can spend an entire season on one structure, river smallmouth annually make long-distance seasonal migrations. Usually, river smallmouths winter in deep, slow-water sections of a river. In spring, they move up or down river to spawn on shallow rock shoals out of the current but adjacent to the main river channel. In summer, they generally concentrate in fast-water sections of the river with weed, wood, or rock. In late summer to early fall, they start moving back to their wintering areas. This annual movement may cover 50 miles or more. To stay on top of river smallmouths, you gotta be mobile.
No matter what species of fish you're after, or actually what river you're fishing, there's 4 things to consider in river fishing. One is water level, current velocity, there's water temperature, and turbidity. And water level, for example, extremely high water is going to push these fish to the banks. And if you take a look at the bank behind me, if this was all flooded, you could easily visualize the smallmouth bass being tucked up along those current breaks right up against the bank. Under low water conditions like we're in now, we've got a big riffle area behind us, and that's where the fish are located at this time.
Water temperature has a real direct bearing on how the fish position within the river. Early in spring, when the water temperature, say, is rising into the low 60s, the fish will often position themselves out of the current in areas where they're going to find hard bottom spawning type conditions, but it's got to be out of the current. As the water gets warmer throughout the summer, a lot of times the fish will position themselves in very, very fast current areas. Main river channel where you got fast ripples, running boulders. It looks a lot like, you know, stream trout water where you'd find rainbow trout throwing spinnerbaits and crankbaits, burning it through those areas. You'll catch a lot of fish. On the opposite side of the spectrum, as we start dropping down in fall, again, the fish start gravitating towards those types of areas where you have less current flow. The fish just will not fight that current when the water temperature is lower.
I feel that bait just pounding the bottom, meaning that bottom contact, deflecting that lure, triggers a lot of fish.
Boy, just walking over beautiful rocks right there. Ooh, there's one. There he is. Look at that. Ooh.
Big small jaws.
Yeah, big boy.
I saw him.
Look at that pig. Ooh. Look at that. Ooh. Ooh, look at the size of that one. That's a real pig smallmouth. There we go. Look at this. You can get a hold on her. Look at that. Beautiful smallmouth. This fish came off of an area which would be a real main river channel spot. The current is really sweeping right up against there. We're in really relatively lower water conditions, so those fish are using those front faces like that. But if you raise the water, say 3 feet or so, there'd be so much current blowing through here, the fish are going to probably be pushed farther down into the initial current breaks right down in this area here. Beautiful fish.
You mentioned current velocity, Jim, and a lot of what you said is just real common sense. When you think about it, when the current is blowing, the fish are going to seek quieter water. Eddies, boulders, even the fret edge or riffles will provide a little bit of a cushion for these fish to position themselves in. And in some instances, they could even drop down into a hole to get out of this rushing current. As the current subsides, you have less velocity. The fish are more free to roam on these flats and may take up residence alongside individual boulders, stumps, whatever is appropriate in the river system that you happen to be fishing. So remember, extremely high water, look for the fish tucked in close to cover. Low water, low current, look for the fish more roaming.
You don't want to forget water clarity. In any river situation, a lot of times you'll have relatively stained or darker water conditions. I know a lot of people would come up and we say this water is relatively dirty, the Mississippi River. But if you fish farther down south in a lot of rivers down there, it would be considered clear. But the point is that it really dictates your choice of lures. In almost any type of darker water fishing situations, you want to beef up the size of your baits. You want to use rattling baits, baits that make noise, put out a lot of vibration so the fish can really tune in and find the bait.
Fish can be here today and gone tomorrow, and anybody that's fished a river more than once can tell you that. The other thing that I learned to do when I pick a river, the real good way to learn it is get on the water at the lowest possible water level. You're going to find the boulders, the stumps, the eddies, the deep holes. You'll find them easily. You got to be careful, but then as that water level comes up, you're going to have a mental picture of exactly how that particular area is laid out, that stretch of water, and you're going to fish it a lot more effectively. Some people I know even take a camera with and they shoot pictures of certain areas so they can go back and refresh their memory, and they do very, very well.
On this particular spot we're fishing, this point off this island, you can see where the water starts to rise right there, and the current break is the lighter water, and right in front of it is where it drops into deeper water. So what we're doing is casting our baits out across it, and it literally sweeping the bait like this, and the fish are stacked up along that break like that. And the difference of how you present that lure can make just a phenomenal difference on the number of fish you get. You get into one good position, a lot of times you could be either anchored or just holding the boat. But once you get the right angle in the sweep, it's important to recreate that same angle, because a lot of times there could be a lot of fish in a very, very small area.
Another important factor to remember about rivers is that you've got to view rivers as stretches. For example, in the spring of the year, you want to be looking for areas of a river that have proper smallmouth bass spawning habitat. Then again, in the summer, these fish may move many miles to a summer habitat area. And in fall, when the water drops, the temperature drops, smallmouth will pack their bags and head down or upstream to winter over, maybe above or below a dam. So river fish are very mobile. When it comes to smallmouth bass, or any fish for that matter, know what habitat the fish prefers and then find it on a seasonal basis. And that means viewing rivers and stretches.
Oh, there's one. Oh, right on the front face of it.
Yes. Got him on the old fire tiger.
Ooh, yeah. Little fat wrap. Ooh, look at that. There should be more of them in there. Let's see if I can hold the boat out away from them. There we go. Come here. There, come here. One thing in any river fishing situation, you have to be able to adapt to the ever-changing river itself. That's the real key to becoming a real successful river angler.
North American rivers unquestionably retain some of the finest bass fishing available to us today. The ability to factor current is the key to understanding the movement and feeding patterns of all fish within these waters. Let's join Dan Sura and James Lindner with insight on river bass during summer months.
I'm going right back.
No, stay out of that water. There, look at this.
There's one, Jim, too.
Now
They're all just tucked up right on the front face of this. Oh, yes. Right on the front face of this little pile of rocks we got here in the current.
Look at that. It's one thing you get on these current flushes like this with smallmouth, and a lot of times you'll have a lot of fish compacted into a relatively small area. There you go. Double header. It's one thing all fish in rivers set up in relation to the current. They let the current bring the food to them. Whether it be a largemouth, smallmouth, walleye, muskies, they all do the same thing.
Smallmouths tend to be a lot more current-oriented than largemouths, and when they're really active, they'll move right up in the front face of objects. Could be a log, could be a big boulder, and as you can see right here, we've got a riffle area, and the active fish can be right up in the riffles. I'm talking even a couple of feet of water. Then when they're a little bit less aggressive and inactive, they may pull down and drop into a pool or tuck in behind a boulder or a stump or a log jam to get out of the main current. Now, largemouths, by and large, are more slack water oriented, and while they may be in current areas with just a slight bit of current, they generally hold adjacent to the major current areas and backwaters. 5-6 feet.
Yeah. You got that little bit deeper fat wrap on. She's digging a little bit better than what I'm getting with the small one rattling fat wrap. You'll be able to cover those little bit deeper sections where I'm just covering right up on top.
They're way up. If I can just keep from getting hung up in there. I might have to go to that smaller lure.
Got him? There you go. Beautiful. What size is he? Man, and they're all nice ones.
I don't have... Yeah, they are. They are so very strong. I don't care where you live in this country, there's rivers around you that are really underfished. And many of these rivers contain smallmouth bass. And when you look at a river, we happen to be fishing the Mississippi River, but it could be the story of many rivers all across North America. Looking at a stretch of river several miles long, it's easy to get an idea of where smallmouth and largemouth bass could set up summer residence. Various stretches of a river have different personalities and therefore provide habitat for different fish. For example, smallmouth will usually be found in river stretches with fast current flow running over rock and gravel shoals. These areas tend to be narrow with moderate current flow. Current breaks like boulders, logs, and eddies are common holding spots for smallies. Now, on the other hand, largemouth set up in widenings of the river where current flow slows. Here, largemouth will often position adjacent to current flowing around wood or weed cover on existing islands or banks. Now, interestingly, during midsummer, oxygen depletion in weed-choked shallow backwater areas will push fish into areas with current, and this tends to concentrate bass in these areas.
Fish were out here casting to it now. Now you're in real dangerous water. This cast, right there, that's where they were living at. There's one. Oh, look at that. There you go. Oh, we're talking air. It's got air. Oh.
Can't ask for anything better than that.
No.
They're just stacked up right on the nose of that thing. There must be 50 of them in there. And those fish are aggressive. I mean, they're really chewing.
It's interesting, see, the way that fish was set up, he was in the classic position for a real active smallmouth. He was set up on that leading front edge of this ripple in here. Right now we're fishing like a 4-foot flat, and then there's some boulders strung out across the top of it, and it rolls into about 6 foot out this way. But them active fish will sit up on the front face. When they're inactive, they have the tendency to drop back out of that current. It's a beautiful smallmouth bass. I'll get her back in the water here.
It's important to remember that all river fish can be very mobile. Active fish move to areas where current concentrates food. Inactive fish move to positions where they don't have to fight current flow. Active largemouths will usually move towards faster current flow areas like the fallen trees on the fronts of these islands, while inactive largemouths will move downstream into slackwater areas holding tight to any weed or wood cover that's available.
And really, fishing a river is a really visual experience because you're looking for current breaks, bulges, eddies, and so forth that you're looking at and placing your lure. It's a very visual experience, whether you're fishing largemouth in the backwaters, fishing heavy cover, or whether you're out more in the main river areas fishing these rock riffles for smallmouth.
As you can see right here where the boulders are breaking the surface, I'm casting way across it, then reeling the bait down so that bait is really making good bottom contact as we roll through those boulders. You want it to bang and clang around down there and you'll catch a lot more strikes. Just like that one. Another big one.
Oh, it's huge.
As you can see, current is one of the primary elements to understanding activity and movement of all river bass.
This is a clinic on smallmouth bass fishing.
Now you've seen some of the best smallmouth waters in our continent. Though many of these fisheries are underfished, that doesn't mean that they can't be overfished by intelligent angling pressure. They can, of course. Our rule of thumb here at In-Fisherman is that no smallmouth ever be eaten unless killed by accident. They're worth so much more as a game fish than as a table fish. Tussling, this feisty and furious critter is much more food for the soul than food for the body. We hope you agree. Until next time, we'll see you on the water.
Nice fish. It is. These guys are just great.